What's up, you guys? This is Rob from The Guy Plays, and today on The Snapshot, we're going to be taking a look at the least annoying Limbo setup there is when we jump in to the Gentleman's Build. Now, many of you guys already know this, but for those of you who don't, you can go ahead and take a look in the description box below for the links to all of the relic locations that contain Limbo, because you know that I just go ahead and pick up primed access, so I don't really bother with any of that. And also, things get vaulted, and I just don't want to deal with any of it. I just go ahead and pick up prime access, which includes the Distresser Prime, the Piranha Prime, and of course Limbo Prime himself, and I am absolutely done. So check that out if you're interested in getting your hands on it ASAP. Alright, so when it comes to the build, this is something that I actually tested out live on stream yesterday, and I've been playing with for quite a while. I've actually gone into a lot of public matches and asked people exactly how annoying is this build. Are you guys irritated by it, or do you guys feel okay? Because as with some of the most recent changes to Limbo, stasis no longer affects your allies' weapons. So now they're not forced into just melee, they can actually go ahead and shoot enemies willy-nilly. And so I was like, alright, let's go ahead and see what happens and how it feels when we go ahead and use an overextended Cataclysm stasis build. So as you can see right here, you are free to stab enemies just fine, and then you can actually go ahead and just shoot enemies as well without even, without even trying. You don't have to do anything. There's nothing too complicated about it. All you got to do is just keep stasis up. And as you can see right here, because of the fact that I am running natural talent on this thing, I can literally just spam away and not have any kind of issues with it whatsoever. And your allies won't have any issues either, which I find to be an absolute godsend, because the last thing you want is to be pissing people off as Limbo. He's got like a bad enough reputation as it is. So a part of it is kind of like, all right, well let's make sure not to keep that persistent. It's a very, very simple build, and the way that you want to do it is basically right before you cast Cataclysm, you want to make sure that you have stasis up. So as soon as the Cataclysm goes live, everything in there is just trapped and unmoving, right? So I've been finding a lot of success with this in Onslaught groups, mainly because of the fact that Onslaught maps are a lot smaller. Now, there are definitely a couple tips and tricks to this. Now, as you can see right there, natural talent came through. Because of the fact that we've got it equipped, we're able to actually reactionarily cast stasis just in case it goes offline as soon as an enemy gets in your face, right? That's always a nice thing to be able to do. You're like, uh-oh, they're coming for me, they're coming for me. And as you can see here, very simple to just go ahead and refresh stasis, toss it back down, and then boom, the whole area is controlled again. Now, of course, this does have a little bit of an issue when it comes to nullifiers, but we'll talk about that gameplay in a little bit, because I did encounter that in this week's Elite Onslaught. But, you gotta have some sort of counter when literally you can stop an entire enemy armada just by casting one ability, right? So all you gotta do, come in here, just show it again, cast stasis. See, I'm already in the rift. So enemies, no matter what they're going to be able to do, are not going to be able to hit me. And then all I got to do is just go on in, as I feel like, willy-nilly, and take out enemies at my own leisure. And the thing about it is, this isn't, hopefully, for the most part, this isn't going to piss people off. Now, I did run into one synergy that did not work too well. Gotcha. Was actually with another player, and he was a Nidus. His larva, I believe? No, was it the larva? It was the thing that you spawn that grabs enemies. It's the spaghetti build. It actually isn't able to snatch enemies that are in stasis. I'm not sure if that's an intended mechanic, because enemies are technically just being held in place. So of course it can't snatch them. As you can see, natural talent, again, with the fast cast speed, is able to, react towards enemies becoming unrifted. Let's just grab that real fast. And then swap over to our Hema again, our beautiful, wonderful baby boy Hema. And as you can see, the rift is slowly closing on this guy, so it's a race. But yeah, they were having trouble grabbing, which I know, didn't necessarily make them the happiest. But of course, not everything is going to synergize with everything. Where did I put that rift? Oh no! Yeah, it's not going to synergize with everything, but for the most part, I've been finding that a lot of people on my teams, when I ask them, and it's like, and my in-game name is not the same as my screen name here on YouTube, so part of it is very much kind of like, oh, okay, like, they don't know who I am, so they're not going to be nice to me about it. They're just gonna tell me how it is. And a lot of people have said that they do not find this irritating at all. So I racked that one up as a score. I even asked on stream, and they were like, we're fine and dandy. The only person who did seem to suffer was that poor Nidus. I'm sorry, Nidus, but you know what? Maybe you're a little too infested to be a gentleman. I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead and look at the build. So this is technically not the original gentleman build. I'll show you guys that in a second. But all we're really doing is focusing on range and a little bit of duration. Now, the reason that we want to do that, of course, is to be able to just encapsulate a large area and stop a bunch of enemies from attacking you at once. Duration, of course, we want to put that in to increase the duration of stasis so that enemies, so you won't have to be like casting stasis over and over and over again. Everything else just kind of falls into place. We are going to be using Vitality, Quick Thinking, and Prime Flow. Now, those are what I call our survivability mods, and the big reason that we are using Quick Thinking, because for 95% of the builds, I won't touch Quick Thinking. I won't even, it's not even something that I want to deal with. The stagger when, because really Quick Thinking only becomes important when you get into high levels where you can get one hit killed, but because of the fact that enemies are hitting you so hard, you're going to be staggering left, right, and center anyway, so it's almost its own death sentence, and because of the fact that it's eating up your energy, you won't be able to react to enemies. However, with Limbo, it's a little bit different, because when you're in the Rift, sorry, I was about to cough, you actually regenerate energy per second. You also get a little bit of a boost from Energy Siphon. And then in addition to that, any enemy that you kill within the Rift is also going to restore some of your energy. So it's kind of like a rechargeable battery that you can have going on, and it's not hard to keep going. It's almost like innate, right? You're going to end up with max energy anyway, so it's a nice little bit of padding. And you won't really run into too much danger because of the fact that you will be using stasis a lot, but every now and then, if things get dicey, you got your Quick Thinking Prime Flow going in there. Now, the other thing that I did put in is Natural Talents, and that one is kind of optional. It's not something that you necessarily need, but I'm finding that as I use it, I'm liking it more and more. Energy Siphon isn't really a big deal in there either. You don't necessarily need to have it. You can swap that out for any different mod you want, whether it's Corrosive Projection or, I don't know, maybe you want to do something wackadoo and make a melee build out of it. Go ham. But I did want to show you a couple variants. One of the things that you can do is drop Natural Talents and toss in Cataclysmic Continuum. So Cataclysmic Continuum, the interesting thing about this one is while it won't make your bubble grow, it'll stop it from shrinking too fast. So that's what it's going to do. But as far as I've seen from the wiki and other people that I've asked, its duration isn't affected by other durations. So it's really, I don't know. I just don't feel like it jives as well. Clearly, you can see that I haven't used it, but it is definitely something that you can swap Natural Talent out for. Then the other one that I would suggest, if you want, you can toss in Rift Torrent, get rid of Overextended, and put in Augur Reach. So Augur Reach basically replaces Overextended. You don't get as much range from it, but it doesn't interfere with Rift Torrent, and because of the fact that you are still going to be rifting a large area of enemies, and then you could toss a Rift Surge on there, you'll get more damage output. That's up to you. I feel kind of like with Limbo, he's very similar to Loki. You get a lot of utility, but you don't really have much damage output, so your weapons better be on point. So I've kind of gotten used to that playstyle. Just make sure that you're rocking good weapons with you when you do go in, if you're not going to be using Rift Torrent. However, if you are going to be using Rift Torrent, have at it, have fun, go on your murderous killing spree. But I do want to show you real quick right now the original Gentleman's build. This is what we came up with on stream yesterday, and I was just laughing so hard because yeah, it's just a thing. You gotta get rid of Cunning Drift there. We get rid of Natural Talent. We put on a little bit of the Augur Reach. And we make sure we got some flowers because, listen, we've got a Distressa Prime. And we need to put flowers on our enemies because that's what gentlemen do, right? We bring flowers for our guests. And as you can see here, you can just lock them down real quick. Ooh, and let me make sure that I'm actually equipping it. Oh, look at the beauteous wonderfulness all over the place already. This is the original Gentleman's build. And, you know, it's kind of like one of those things where it's nice because you kind of just get to do as you please. Now, of course, the reaction time is a little bit slower because we don't have Natural Talents in there, but, you know, it's not terrible. it's absolutely doable, at least for me. And as you can see here, we're having a good old time. You can also see the rift shrinking, and that's something that we'll talk about when we get into more of the complex mechanics for the gameplay. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let me go ahead and take out one last enemy. Some flowers. And the slash damage, and boom, they're done. So let's go ahead and talk about some tips and tricks when using the Gentleman's Build. Alrighty, while the simulacrum is nice, it is really just a simulation of actual gameplay. So I went ahead and took this into Elite Onslaught as well as a couple other missions, and let me tell you, I had so much fun with this, and I felt really, really good. I actually didn't feel that I was pissing people off. I felt that I was actually helping out the team. And that's because of the fact that ESO tends to have very small rooms. Well, not very small rooms, but pretty small areas to cover. And when you're running an overextended Limbo, one of the things that you can do is basically lock down about 90% of that map. And because of the fact that enemies don't come in from spawn points and spawn rooms, they just kind of spawn in, they'll actually spawn in to the actual stasis areas. So it's nice because what you can do is as you're fighting, you'll see some damage numbers tick off and you're like, oh, more enemies entered into the void. So you can actually just dash on over to that little area and start taking them out. It's very similar to Equinox's MAME, where you see a slash proc go off and you're like, enemies are over there. So when you got the stasis down, you can actually see little damage numbers come up when the spawns from ESO come out. So you're like, oh, they're right there. I can go ahead and lay in a little bit of damage. And you know what? It's always nice to be a support frame, but still be able to put out a good chunk of the team's damage. You're like, I got you. I got you here. I'm supporting you on one end, and I'm also killing on the other end. So I see you. I'm doing it for you. So that's definitely one of the things that I wanted to point out. The other thing that I wanted to point out as well is, of course, not all enemies are going to spawn in the middle, and as Cataclysm slowly begins to shrink, what you'll find is everything in the middle is kind of gone, and you're fighting enemies out on the outer edges. So that's one of the things to pay attention to is as you run out of enemies in the middle, you're going to start wanting to move out if you can't find any enemies to fight. And as soon as you start noticing that your rift is getting a little too small, because, you know, shrinkage is always a thing we have to worry about, just go ahead and find a nice central point to recast it again. So that's definitely one of the things to pay attention to. Also, if you have certain maps, because certain maps spawn in certain areas, like you kind of get the feeling for them, make sure to drop your cataclysms in those areas. It doesn't need to be a central point to try to cover everything. Sometimes maybe you just need to control one, like if you can control half of the map, that's still all kinds of powerful. Now the other thing that I do need to address is the fact that nullifiers fuck you over. They will fuck you over, and I hate them. So you have to change up the gameplay just a little bit. Again, like I was saying earlier, to be able to have a character that can literally lock an area down without any enemies being able to fight you back, and your team being able to shoot, stab, and use powers on them, little bit OP. So these nullifiers are definitely a hard counter, which is fine. You just gotta kind of evolve with it, right? So what I tended to do, because in this week's ESO there was a nullifier heavy like mission, what I would actually go and do is I would just get into the void and I would make a beeline for them. I would beeline them, and then I would just go ahead and banish the enemies in that area. Because, of course, nullifier nullifiers your rift, right? So you get in there, shoot them in the face, and then you toss down a banish, which banishes the group of enemies that they're around. You'll have, you could recast stasis, then get back into the rift and finish them off. It's a little bit more complicated, but it is the price you pay for having so much power at your fingertips. So again, tips. Don't forget to recast your Cataclysm because you don't want shrinkage on your balls. That's a bad thing. Shrinkage everywhere else is also bad, but specifically in this area, balls don't shrink. Fight on the outer edges if you can't find anything in the center to fight. And then next, nullifiers are bitches, but we already know that. So dash in there, shoot them in the face, and then go ahead and get down to banishing. One of the other things I do want to point out is if you know that you're in a nullifier heavy elite onslaught, don't try to keep recasting stasis over and over and over again. Not stasis, cataclysm. Don't try to recast it over and over and over again. Legitimately, just give in to the fact that this 2 minutes is not your 2 minutes of glory, because you're just going to be burning through your energy. Another really cool tip is if you don't have any energy and you're not running Xeneric, and as many of you guys know, I don't run Xeneric. I actually always run Naramon. what you can do is, as soon as you step into the mission, if you don't have enough energy for Cataclysm, which you should have enough energy for Cataclysm, but let's say something happens, I would go ahead, banish a group of enemies, hop into the Rift, and start killing them, because, as a reminder, any enemies that you kill in the Rift will restore your energy. So that banish, as long as you get that banish off on a decently sized group of enemies, you'll be able to restore your energy, get your kills off, and then go ahead and cast your Cataclysm. And honestly, after you cast that first Cataclysm, you should be set for energy, because all of the kills that you make in there will be replenishing you, and of course you're gonna have that energy regeneration over time. So that about does it for me for now. Leave me your feelings down in the comments below. More specifically, like I was saying earlier, there was a bit of a bad synergy with Nidus. I'm just curious because, you know, I've only been able to play this with pubs and the people that I picked up on stream, so I haven't been able to run through every single Warframe and the synergy with, or the synergy or anti-synergy with those Warframes. So let me know if he still massively fucks over anybody like he did with Spaghetti Nidus, because I'm curious, just so I can tailor myself to those situations. But that about does it for me for now, and as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch yo limbo. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!